Hi guys, I'm Paddy, and I'm with the artist Wesley, who is promoting his new book, The Calling from Life's Clock and the Value of Time. This is his latest book after Rooted Heart's Elevated Thoughts in Poetic Equation, published in 2021. First of all, hi, how are you? And how has the idea of sharing new artistic material been for you after the first book?
Hi, Paddy. Yeah, I'm grand. Thank you very much. It has been a journey of new directions and discoveries, both as an artist and a person. I recall when I published my first book, Rooted Heart, Elevated Thought in Poetic Equation, and at that time there were so many things to say and express, given that I was experiencing and the observations I was making as I looked at the world. There was my reality then, and after that, a tremendous amount happened. I went through so many experiences and significant changes, and I felt it was time to turn that into art. So I began writing new material, which would eventually become this book. And I am so ecstatic to finally be able to share it.
So what themes or ideas do you explore in your new poetry, and how do your own personal experiences and beliefs affect your writing?
In the face of the chronology that hangs over each of us, it's about the awareness of time that consumes everything. It's a journey through the eras of my life, an account of the experiences I've lived through and observed around me, all of them in their most honest dualities amidst the light and darkness of the soul. It's about living such as centenarians, going through the change of everything, taking risks to find, lose, and rediscover yourself in the midst of a restless search for the meaning, and about creating that meaning or even living intensely when everything seems utterly meaningless. Over time, I've increasingly felt the calling from life's clock, which has led me to reflect deeply on the reality of the carnal mortality. My life is all I have right now while I am here. I know that at some point I won't be here anymore, and these words will just be echoes in the air. Sometimes we fail to appreciate the moment because we are distracted by what has passed or what might come. However, I speak about navigating these stages of life and seeking the awareness that in every present moment I'm alive, risking everything. It's me speaking to myself, reminding me to live in the present, faithful to my dreams and possibilities. And in the midst of the change within my core and in my flesh, on my skin, it's also about the reflection of surpassing such chronology, advancing a state of consciousness ahead of time without getting stuck in yesterday or tomorrow. Now is everything. Now is everything. What I do now changes the course of my future forever. Consciousness is necessary and attitude is everything. I often speak by my metaphorical deaths, my daily resurrections before my final death, and more I realize that there's something greater than my ignorance, greater than my ego. That's why I also talk about caring not just for myself, but for the others, seeking to be humble in the face of the fact that my life comes from something beyond me. Such humbleness is incredibly important in this cosmic vastness, a vastness that has also allowed me to be surrounded by marvelous people who are or have been part of my life. For instance, my grandmother Conceição, who brought beautiful colors into my life simply by being herself and loving me deeply. Today I no longer have her here on this plane anymore, and her passing has deeply affected how I see things. And now, more than ever, I believe that love transcends even death, considering that I feel her presence every day. I also strongly believe in the importance of spending time with the people we love. It's one of the most meaningful ways to use our time, given that everything in this life is temporary and ephemeral.
What timeline were these poems written in?
Okay, I knew it was going to be a book because of the need to tell stories inspired by a new journey after moving from Brazil. Several things have happened, things I never imagined I would experience, and this has made me see the world through even more different eyes. It has helped me grow both as a human being and as an artist. Specifically, I started writing in August 2022 in Scotland and finished in August 2023 in Ireland. After that, it took me 6 months to fully translate into an English, followed by a few more months to complete the revision.
So when did the direction of the book take shape?
When I started writing this book, I already knew it would indeed be a book. Unlike my first one, which happened unexpectedly, initially just unpretentious poems that later became a complete work, this new project was more deliberate. New experiences began to shape me after I moved to Scotland, and then the concept just emerged in my mind. I started writing with a clear archetype in mind, aiming to achieve a particular vision. As I continued, I further developed the material through new experiences when I moved to Ireland. The poems generally took shape around themes of aspirations, fears, ambitions, mental health, life, death, and the duality of being human in this short chronological journey on Earth.
So how do you approach the craft of poetry? Do you follow a specific process or structure? Can you take me through that process if you do?
When I'm creating, I try not to follow a specific structure as a rule because I believe it limits creativity. I usually write at unexpected times and places, whether during the day or at night. For instance, if I'm walking down the street and start thinking about something, I would take out my mobile phone and write down ideas at the very moment. This happens several times, allowing me to gather material. Then I transcribe everything onto my laptop and polish and refine it. Of course, there have been times when I've been woken up at dawn or very early in the morning and started writing, trying to get ideas out with a clear and rested mind. But in general, I'm always creating something, even if it's just for myself. What's most interesting is that it happens naturally. I don't usually force myself to write. However, if I intend to turn into a book or even songs, I work on it until it becomes a reality. But I don't force myself to create anything, and I think that inspiration comes when it's meant to.
So how do you see your poetry fitting into the larger context of contemporary literature?
That's an interesting question. I wouldn't say about fitting into a pre-established direction, but rather about adding my artistic identity in an authentic and honest way to how I see, think, and feel. Perhaps this can transcend the barriers of the present, becoming something universal and timeless.
How do you handle writer's block or creative blocks, and do you have any specific tips or techniques for overcoming them?
There are often times when I feel hollow inside or like I don't want to do anything, and that's when I find myself dealing with a creative block. Even when it comes to writing, this is so ironic because most of my creations emerge in the midst of my internal battles and dualities as I try to dissect the situation and rise above it. However, a lack of a will and fatigue truly block any creativity. I just try to rest and I don't force myself to create. I take time to relax my mind and live new experiences. From my perspective, the more experiences we allow ourselves to have, the more we have to say. In addition to the idea that our time on this plane is short, it's necessary to reflect on what it means to live a life we truly experience. Although the concept of living differs for everyone, so I try to see it from this point of view as a technique from overcoming my creative block. I don't know the exact formula or the secret, but it works for me. At least it has so far.
How has your writing evolved over time? And can you discuss specific poems or a collection of poems that marks significant points in your development as a poet?
One of my most significant developments as an artist was undoubtedly taking the risk of publishing this book, specifically in English, which is not my first language. When I began writing this project, it was with the aim of reaching a wider international audience. Originally, most of the poems were written in Portuguese, and then I translated them, which was almost like rewriting them, because I had to paraphrase the verses and add new words to make them rhyme without losing the meaning of the Portuguese version. However, a considerable portion of the work was originally written in English as well. So I feel I've developed technically as a poet in terms of expressing myself beyond my native language.
How do you hope your poetry will be received or interpreted by readers? And do you have any specific themes or messages that you would like to convey through your poetry?
What I realized after sharing my art with people is that we are all humanly connected, even though everyone experiences their own story differently. However, the feeling is universal, and when I started performing in another language, I became even more convinced of this. It's marvelous to witness how the sense of my poetry has trespassed language barriers. Around the world, we are exposed to an infinity of feelings and thoughts in their most distinctive dualities. We all go through good and bad times. One of the most fascinating things for me was observing people's empathy, just as I also felt empathy for the universe around me when I wrote the book. And I think that's one of the most important messages behind my art. We are part of a whole thing in which all of us have a role, a meaning, even if we are in search of that meaning. And it doesn't matter if the world it's not a perfect place, because it's not. Even so, there's beauty in all things, knowing that as long as there's time, there's always a chance for something more, something beyond, the chance to touch dreams, even if for a brief moment.
So thank you for coming on. That was wonderful answers. I think everyone got a lot of information. So go and buy his new book. Thank you.
Thank you.
Woo.